welcome in, welcome back, or welcome to my channel. If you're new here, either way, I appreciate you for clicking in and seeing what I have to say. I hope the message speaks. I hope it's clear so that way you can hear God speak to you exactly the way He needs you to hear Him. Welcome in. Yes, I'm sure a lot of you that have come across my page or my channel um, is like, what is going on? She made this whole short of like, we won, and I thought that she was done, and I thought that meant that we wouldn't see her anymore. Yeah, me too. Like, that is how I feel most days. I'm not gonna lie. But unfortunately, this is what obedience looks like for some of us, and I am taking the silence back. I'm letting the silence speak today. So I wanted to come up and I wanted to really go into detail about, the house that I came from, the house that built me, and the town that I came from, because within them, you know, unfortunately, those are the places where God really, really fine tuned this discernment He placed into me so heavily. And with that is the ability to see things that are not being shown and hear things that are not being said. And that's where it started. That's where He really started to fine tune it within me. But honestly, I do not think that most of you want to hear anything that comes out of the mouth of somebody like me, and that's fine. I really, really do love you, and it's not about being right or wrong. Especially with people that have this discernment the way that we do, because most of the time we don't want to be right. We don't want to look out and see the things that we see and look back and come up with the things that God has shown us and allowed us to hear through it all. We don't want to be right most of the time. In fact, we try so hard not to be right. And I've done that. I've tried so hard not to be right throughout it all. But I will say this, about the house that built me and the town that I grew up in. I know very clear, and God has given me that ability to see when it is about my name, is about the space in the picture, is about what I did, and nothing about what God did for me and what Jesus gave me. You guys don't want to hear how closely God has been speaking in my ear all my life, whether I wanted to listen, whether it was a little distorted, whether I took it and twisted it into something I was more comfortable with, or whether I found a way to just shut it all off. Not just Him, but the heaviness that comes with the gift. A gift that I'm only calling a gift because Jesus tells me that I have to call it a gift. God gave me those gifts. Because if you ask me, it's a curse. Nobody wants to be seen. We all present ourselves. What comes out of our mouth, what we show people is what we want them to see. And nobody wants somebody that can see past that, through the good or bad, insecurities that we don't want people to see. Nobody wants, they may think that they do in the beginning, but the longer you're around people like that, nobody really wants to stay close to people like that. And it's heavy because not only do you see things and hear things, but you feel the weight of it all. You feel it all. And you have the ability to see most of it all. See it, whether it's wrong or right. But it doesn't mean you're not blinded at times. And I have wanted to be so blinded in the fact of looking out, giving my testimony and what I see. I wanted to be so wrong. But it's not about being right or wrong. It's about the truth. And that's all it ever was, with my mom, with my dad, with that town, with the adoption, with everything. It was never about how I felt or being wrong or right or any of it, because if it was, so much of my life would have turned out differently. And I'm not saying any of it was for the good. But He did give it to me, and it was heavy, and it is very heavy. And most of the time, we don't want to be right. So I will tell you this, though, of it, because it's important because, like I said, I know very clearly when it is about somebody's name. I know very clearly, and it's because of the town, but before the town, you don't know. You had the four walls, just the four walls that you grew up in. And the things that were happening in that house were enough. But it really fine tuned me. My mom was an amazing manipulator. She could compartmentalize. She could be the only one who knew where your stuff was, knew that your secret, and somehow it was gone and the whole world knew. And then she had this ability to make people believe that it was anybody but her. And I'm just looking around like it couldn't have been. You're the only one who knew. Nobody knew. And it was just like, how can people not see this? Well, God gave me the gift to see through all of it. With mom, it was a lot of saw that you had to sort through to find just a little grain of truth, because there was always a little bit of truth there before she spun it into whatever she needed it to be. And whether people have seen it or not, those blood ties are real deep, no matter how toxic the situation is or the secrets that you hold for generations. And sides were taken because of it. She just really taught me how to look in between the lines and really, really, really see what's not being said, because that's where you're going to find more of the truth. And with my dad, he was like a ticking time bomb, except for, you hear beep beeps and then boom. But with him, God really trained me to hear the beeps before the beeps that we don't hear, the beeps that you really have to zone in and look for. And he gave that to me. And I always thought it was for that house. So before I knew it, I was able to call my mom out from 2, 3, 10 miles away. Like I see it coming before I see what's mapping out in your brain. And what's crazy is, I think me and my mom, we have the same ability. Like, that's the thing about God's gifts. He gives them to everyone. Everybody has God's gifts, but it's the heart. He gives us choices. And that's the heart. And it's crazy because I used to tell everybody, like, I know my mom because I could be every bit of my mom, but I don't have the heart. I do not have the heart to do the things that I've sat and watched her do to just about everybody around me, to get what she wants, to cover up for more lies, to manipulate, to do all of these things. And it just goes to show just how important the heart is. The same gift, two different hearts. We're polar opposites. We are coming from the same gift and chose two totally different paths to use it, because there's no way that she could not do the things that she does to people and have the same gift that I do. There's just no way. And it was like God was showing me what not to do with it. And it doesn't mean that I was perfect. Oh gosh, we could go down roads, and I would love to. I would really love to, because I think that's what God calls us all to do. That's where you learn. That's where you grow. That's where you understand. I just think with me, you can't get past this picture. You can't get past me to be able to do that. And God really fine-tuned me in that department. But no, I do. I absolutely believe that with everything. And it's proof that it just comes down to the heart. And she's seen me just as much as I've seen her. And that's why she kept me at an arm's length. She kept me at a distance, because nobody likes to be seen. Nobody likes to. Yeah. So I always thought that. And like with Dad, you couldn't just step in a room. You had to feel the atmosphere. You had to check his breathing, his nostrils, his eyebrows, the look in his eye, everything, the clenching in his jaw, like everything, because appearances can be deceiving. He could be to the outside world looking like he's having a good time and he's just fine. But I knew that he was seething under there and he was boiling and something went wrong. I could feel it. I could sense it. I could look at it and just see it for what everything was. And I never wanted to be right about my mom. I never wanted to be right about my dad. And I mean, but it was protection. It was to keep me safe, and God gave that to me. And I always thought that is what it was for. So then you start leaving that house to go to school, and you start to try to make friends. You have crushes. You want to have boyfriends. You just want to live, this and do the things that other people do, and you kind of get stiff-armed. They smile, they nod politely, they wave, but they keep you at a distance. And at first it was nothing anybody had to say. I felt it. I seen it. I didn't understand what was going on. And the look that they were giving, for a lot of the kids, they didn't even understand why, but it was because of what their parents had told them. And then, it reflects, it shows, you, like I said, you smile, you wave, you're friendly, you do all the things, but you don't invite them here. You're not going to their house, and you absolutely don't date them. And that was the resounding. And I've had a few, back then kids didn't have filters that much. So some of them didn't understand why. So that, yeah, they would pass along the message. And then, be out in town somewhere and, the parents for sure gave me the look. I knew, I felt it, but I never understood why, but it was there. And it wasn't like a look of hatred. And maybe it was to some extent. I wouldn't put it past them. But it was disgust, and everybody stayed away from me. Like there was something in my blood, and if they got too close, they're going to catch it. So you stay away. But you're always nice, and you always smile, and you always wave your polite. And I couldn't understand it for years. I walked around in the town, sensing, feeling, seeing that there's obviously something about my family that they know, and I don't know. But I knew, and God put that in me. God gave me that. But you don't realize, like, when you're in those four walls and you leave, it goes with you. Like this ability to feel everyone, to sense everything, to wear it like a coat around you. And sometimes you don't even know whose feelings you're feeling. Like I had to, all right, who's feeling something good or bad? It didn't matter, but you step into a room and you sense the shift just as well as you did when you stepped into the room that Dad was in. You sift through all of what's not being said, just like you did with that you had to do with Mom. Like, it is insane. It was insane to me, and I didn't understand it. Like, what is wrong with me? Like, I knew what was going on in our house and our four walls, but this was different. This was more than that, and I couldn't understand it for years. Nobody would tell me. Nobody would really tell me. And then one day when I was older, my aunt, she was finally brave enough to tell me what she could, what she was able to, and it was really hard for her to do that, and it was very, very, very brave because it's pretty much the only thing that I know about this, like, it all in my family, and it's not good. And the thing is, like, my mom and my grandpa on her side, his dad, and probably his dad and dad before that, I honestly don't know how far back it goes. I probably would be horrified to fully understand how far and how deep, and for everything that it was. I think it would be hard. But for generations, they lived in the same town, on the same property, and horrible things were done on that property. And when she told me, I understood. I understood why they stayed away. I understood why they looked at me the way that they did. I understood why they told their kids to stay away from my family. I understand it all. But it wasn't us. It wasn't me. But we paid for it. We paid for a lot of it in so many ways, to the point where I was ashamed to say my last name as I grew up. I'd go into bars and people would recognize my face. I looked just like my mom. And if they didn't, that town was, we don't care about your first name, what's your last name? And you just put your head down in shame because it was always the same resounding, oh, I bet you've heard some stories. And it's crazy because I've never heard any of them from anybody outside my family. Never. They were never brave enough to actually elaborate on the things that they knew. I always wondered, but they didn't have to. I feel like whatever they knew was just the tip of the horrible, horrible iceberg. And they weren't wrong, but they weren't right either. Because once you realize the gravity of, my family thought that they were shoved. We are wired to just shove everything under the rug. And for as much as they thought they were doing that, you live in the small towns and everybody knows. And then that's when the shame turns to anger and hatred, and you just want to burn it all down. And that's what I did when I left that town. I just, in my own ways, I burned it all to the ground. And I never looked back. Um, because you start to think about it, and they knew for generations. Everybody knew, and it breaks your heart in so many ways because of the fact that they knew. If the whole town knew, then that means people who could have done something knew. People who could have put a stop to it. Because of all the stories I've heard, I never heard any of the stories where anybody paid for the horrible things that they did. I never heard that story. But the whole town knew. Everybody knew. I knew that they knew before I knew what they knew. Like everybody. My best friend, she grew up in that town. That means her parents grew up with my parents. And I'm sure some people's parents or parents in that town grew up with my grandpa and then his dad. And everybody knew. And when I started hanging out with my best friend, her parents did not like it. And it took some time for them to really see that I was not that I just wasn't that, but even out of my siblings, like it was just like you sit in this different way of thinking. Like they all sat in this collective way of thinking still, that I was just not privy from a very young age. When God gave me that discernment, I didn't know what an ounce of love was or what to compare it to. But I knew this wasn't it. I knew that before I knew anything. I knew that wasn't it. And God just gave me the very strong, feeling of, no, this is not it. But I am, and I just never understood what that was. But he definitely has been in my ear my whole life, and he's definitely fine-tuned it, and I definitely recognize and see a lot. I see through it all. And my grandpa sat in the same pew every Sunday for years, even before I was a thought to anybody. He sat in that same pew, same church, same everything. And they knew. They were part of that town. They knew. And they also knew when they started to see that little girl sit beside him every Sunday. And they knew. And it was just like, in my mind, the shame was put everywhere except for on the people that it should have been put on, if anywhere. The people that did the horrific acts, and the people who knew and turned their backs. They turned their cheeks. But then with discernment, the way that I have it, this ability to see things and hear things and understand things, whether it's wrong or right, I can understand how most people get there. I can understand and see. And God gave me the ability that it's not about being right or wrong. It's not black or white. I was born in the midst of the gray because He gave me the ability to see and recognize enough that it probably wouldn't have mattered, not just for the time that it was, because when it came my time and I spoke out, the response I got, you know, my mom, she said she didn't believe me, but it was never about her words. It was about what she wasn't saying. It was what was being said to me. Beyond that, and beyond that, everything that was being told to me is she did know. She knew, and it was just the normalcy about it. This is just the way it is about it. This is, we don't talk about it. And I mean, it's the same because when I not that little town, but later on it was still happening. I reached out and I told somebody who could have done something. The response was, I was in the 6th grade. We moved to a town for a little bit over here, and it came out. And the response I got, they didn't even know my last name. They didn't know anything about the town. They didn't know nothing. And the response was, well, he's an old man. He's probably going to die soon. Is it really worth dredging it all up and making him sit in prison for the rest of his years? He's going to die soon anyways. It's not worth it, pretty much. It wasn't worth it. And little does she know that man lived to be well old. About 6 years after I graduated, 7 years after I graduated, he passed away. And none of his. And yeah, so I understand. I get it. And it falls from wanting to burn the whole town down to understanding. I've had many people. You grow up, you graduate, you move out, you run into them, and they have a conversation with you, and they're just like, "Wow, you're not," and it's just like, I know, I know, and it's okay. Uh, and there's just no need to say sorry. It's just I get it, and I'm just glad that they see. It's all, gosh, the first time I found out some people from that town prayed for me, I bawled for weeks. It was insane. It was insane because in that house you're told so much and you believe it, and for people to see differently, oh, it's the best. So when I really come up here and say that it's not about my name, because I absolutely know when it is, especially with the gift God has given me. And you go out, you leave the town, and it's for everything. You feel everything. You feel the weight of it all. You watch the news, you listen to a song, you talk to people, you feel it. You feel it all. You walk into a room and you just feel everybody. You feel the atmosphere, you feel them individually, like you feel it, and it's a lot of weight, especially when you come from nothing. You're told you're going to be nothing. Your family's nothing. Like, all of it is nothing, a bunch of nothing. And then it's just, that's just what you believe. So there's a lot more that, and it's heavy. And so when I found a way to shut it off, it was, I shoved everything I could up my nose, and I was drunk or loaded with something. And it was just more about, it wasn't even so much about shutting God off in that voice. It was shutting everything else off, all of everybody. I just didn't want to feel it all. I didn't want to see it all. And I shut it off for a long time, and I definitely took it overboard. I went hard in it. and I didn't need to, and God knows I didn't need to. I could have had a beer, and it would have been enough to give me the release that I was looking for. But if I know one thing, I like to take it to the extreme, and I don't know. I'm sure there's some people out there who would say I'm an addict. Some days I say I was an addict and I was addicted. Um, I was very high functioning, that's for sure. Very, very, very high functioning. Because as much as I looked at my family and said that, if I just do everything that they didn't do, I'd be fine, I really took some things and fine tuned it too. And the ability to hold some alcohol and party was one of those abilities too, unfortunately. But yeah, I shut it off and I got to just feel whatever I was feeling. And I was also running from that whole town. I was running from that house. I was running from it all. I wanted a break. It was time to be selfish. And selfish was I. For as much as I was there for everybody, for as much as I was an open book, um, it was all, I felt like I was in control of the openness, and I let you lead how deep you wanted to go. And if you didn't want to go that deep, it didn't bother me. You know what I mean? But yeah, I definitely did. So yeah, I know when it's about somebody's name. I know when all you see is me. I know, and I have been open enough to ask, and say, love me enough, brothers and sisters, to tell me that I'm wrong. Tell me that I've got it all wrong here. Tell me that whatever gift that you think God gave you is wrong. You're off on this, because I'm not perfect. I have been off. I have been off a few times. And boy, I would love to be off here. And, you don't have to call me out in my comment section or my live chat. If you don't want to, you can. But you can email me in private and tell me that I have it all wrong here. But I don't really look at my analytics, because I don't really. It's not what it's about. But let me just tell you that my channel has now gotten 21,000 views. I think the people have spoken, and in my mind, I like to say that's 21,000 people not sitting in the name of Jesus. But the gift that God gives me tells me that that is not the truth. And that's okay, because I did want to come up here and speak. I did want to come up here and yell at everybody in the beginning, especially when I left them Christian groups. I kid you not. I wish I would have been smart enough to screenshot all the things, all the horrible things people said, screaming his name, sitting in his name. And we think silence is better than confronting that. I wanted to come. I wanted to come up here. And God was just like, no. Who are you? What position are you in? Not that I was wrong. Not that it wasn't happening. Not that he wasn't starting to show me truth. But he asked me, what position are you in? What have you really talked about? All you've said is what you did and what I've done. You really haven't talked about anything. So we came up and we talked about things. I was like, bet I'll come up and say the things. And no, we talked about things and nothing changed. Not much, not in the way it should. But you know what? The reason why I couldn't speak then is because I couldn't say, and I didn't see, and I didn't experience, and I didn't speak. And I spoke when he told me to just speak. Because now it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you left and you come back. It doesn't have to be a conversation. I will never acknowledge it. I'll never call it out. We'll never speak on it. We'll never None of it, because that's not what it's about. It's because you were brave enough to come back and answer and ask yourself some of the questions I've been asking. If I see you, it's because I know that you're here for him, that you're trying to ask God, what in the world with all of this mess? Show me you. Because that's what it's about. Not for me, but for you to get to him. Because I'm sorry that you were pulled in here. I am sorry that you got that inkling to click or hear me or wherever. I truly am, because I understand it. I understand and I get you. I get you. But how you felt when you got here, and then you take it and you left and you did nothing when God was asking you to do something with that. And you know that God was asking it, especially for the people that sit all over. I see it all over. You're out there looking like you know. But Jesus was asking you to do something with that when you went up out of here. And it's not just here. It's not just you. It's in the pews we sit in, the groups we're a part of. It's in the streets we walk down. It's everywhere. It's not about me. It's not just me. It's not about the people who are walking the same path as I do. It's about the name you sit too high upon. I remember, you know, when I finally felt like, God was giving me community. I walked in and I looked around and I was like, these are God's. This is amazing. I feel like I truly, and in a lot of ways, it's true. It was a gift, and I see God's vision in it all. I see His hand in it all. I see what His vision for it all is supposed to be. I see it. I see it so clearly. And I remember telling somebody, and before I took that step, I was like, I feel God pulling me here. I feel it. I feel Him so strongly. And I came back and said, by the time this is said and done, I feel like all will be revealed. Because then, you get in. And the more, for me, the more I'm around, the more I get to see, the more I get a clearer vision, the more I get a clearer picture of the things that, not only that you're saying, but the things that you're not saying. Not only things that you're showing me, but the things that you're not showing me. And, people don't like that. People think it's a cool, party trick or something, but it's really not. It's like I said, people don't like to be seen. They want you to see what they present to you. And the last thing that they want is somebody to come in and be able to see through that. And not just like you're hiding something or you're lying, but your insecurities. Just everything that you don't want people to see. One thing that town and that house built in me is that everybody has a baseline. They have a normal baseline that they follow. And yeah, we drift from it naturally. Normally, yeah, we do. But when we veer from it, I'm sensitive to see when you do a little bit, but again, God has given me the ability to recognize that we all do from time to time for innocent reasons, anxiety, just have you not. But when we really stray from that baseline, in my experience, it never leads to anything good. It's not good. And that's the gift that he's given me. My mom used to call me a human lie detector test for a reason. She used to tell everybody, oh, if you don't want to do anything bad, then don't be around Ashley. And it's just like, my nose isn't up in the air. Trust you, I'm bad. People out there would be like, I don't even know why these girls up here preaching, because she's so bad. And I couldn't be like, they're wrong. But it was just like, Mom, that's not doing shady stuff. Then stop it. It was just so easy for me. Then don't do it. If you don't, I don't know. But that's the thing. I'm very quick to to pick up on that. It's very sensitive. So once you get in, you're like, and you don't, for me, I don't ever want to see it. I don't, it's just like you get in and it's like, yes, I'm hibbity, hubbity, jubbity, and all the things. And you're like, oh my gosh, yes. And then you see it. And then you're like, nope, I didn't see it, God. No, I did not see it. Lord, I did not see it. Don't do this. They're wonderful people. I'm here. I'm feeling all the things that I'm feeling right now. So no, I don't see that. And you don't want to. And then it's almost like the ick that everybody is out there talking about. Like, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And then it all unravels from there and you start to just see it more clearly. And that's what he has given me. And so, yeah, you get in and you start, and that's what I told them. I said, by the time this is done, all will be revealed. And that's what God is telling me. All my questions will be answered. And they were, whether I wanted them to be or not, they were. And like I said, I wanted community so bad. It was pathetic. But God wanted clarity. And when he said, take a step back now, I listened. Maybe you thought you were coming here to catch some seeds, but you didn't want what God was planning through me. You didn't want it. You didn't want to be challenged. You didn't want to be changed. You wanted something you could hold on to without laying anything down. And maybe that's the real issue here. Because this was never about planting seeds over here or waiting for the soil to soften. We can't even talk about seeds or soil. But while we are, I don't think that you guys understand and recognize through all of your response what seed you were planting over here. And it was not one that it was one that I tried to throw this seed back. I tried to throw this seed back. No, but this was about looking around. It was about casting judgment. It was about then taking all of that and calling it faithfulness. But it wasn't faithfulness. It was fear. It was pride. It was refusal to be confronted by the very God you claim to serve. You didn't come here to sow life. You came to bury conviction, to cover it up before it ever demanded something of you. And maybe you think that's harmless. Maybe you think that's just the way it is. But it's not harmless. And it's not holy. Because when you walked away from me, you weren't just walking away from a person. You were walking away from the voice of God you didn't want to recognize. Because it didn't sound like what you were used to. It's easy. It's easy when we hear about journeys, faith, testimonies, when we hear somebody speak, when we look and we ourselves can wrap our heads around and say, yeah, that makes sense, that tracks, that flows, I can see that. But what about the people you can't wrap your heads around? What about the times it doesn't make sense to you? What is Jesus asking you to do? All along this way, I fought God. I told myself I was wrong, that I was the wrong one here. I told him, it's not about me. My name was broken long before anybody knew I existed but God. It was done. I never had a chance. I said, I'm not asking people to say, poor Ashley. I'm not asking them to band around and say, look what we did to her. I'm okay with that. I've dealt with that my whole life. I can handle it. I promise you. Does it hurt? Yeah. Has it caused things all my life that only God can handle? Absolutely. That's what he's for, and that's why he gave us Jesus. No, I'm asking them to see what they're doing in your name, Lord, to you. And he knows that. And when it's truly from God, when all your prayers, when you're searching, when your heart's desire, when you lay him down in it, you truly give it to God, he answers. And you know what? Most of the time, it's not what we expect, and it's not in the way we want, because just because somebody did see, because somebody spoke, not in my name, but his, he was letting me know that no, it wasn't, I'm not making this about me. No, it wasn't all about me. And that I am. In some way, I am right. That it's what we were doing to him. What we're doing to a fellow child of God who's up here laying it all down for him. There's nothing about my journey, my testimony that glorifies me. There's nothing about my life growing up. There's nothing about my family for generations. There's nothing to glorify here. In fact, when I think about when my kids do ask me about my family, and there's not much good to tell. And then the good that you look back on, and when you think what it's built on, it's rough, it's hard, and you lean on them. But no, he answers, and he answered me a few days ago when I popped into somebody, and they weren't saying, look what you did to her, look what you look what we're doing to her. It wasn't about me. It was like, look at this child of God speaking so highly in his name, pointing people back to him, speaking truth, laying it out. And they said we should flood over to her and uplift her. And you know what? People didn't flood. They never do. And it's okay, because that's not the point. God showed up for me when she said that. And that let me know that I'm not wrong. They see it. They know. Every person that comes in here and leaves, especially people that scream his name so loud and just admit so much Jesus, they do see it, and they don't say anything. And that speaks. Because when you leave out of here, and then you go continue on, what does that say about anything that you do or say from here on out? I know what it says to me. I know what it says to God. I know what it says to Jesus, and that's not any of them. But God showed up for me, and he pointed me back to the truth once more. And as much as I want to sit up here and say I'm done, not with God, but with speaking my whole heart to ears that just don't want to hear, because they can't look past the picture that you're staring at right now. I laid it bare. I tore myself open on the altar. Spoke it like it was just me and him. This is my diary. Because I thought that's what we were all supposed to do. Because that's where he is. That's where we teach. That's where we learn. That's where we grow. Because that's where he does his best work. And I say it because it's true. But the shame is not mine. It never was. And I'm tired of carrying that weight. It belongs to the ones who look away when God poured fire in my mouth and they called it too much. Where were you? Every one of you who shout at the altars about what Jesus can do. And you are right. You are so right. But where were you when I was screaming his name and drowning? You came over when I was a part of the hype, and I did. I thought it was a gift from God, and it was. It was. And maybe for a moment I believed that it was a gift for me. The way I wanted the gift to come. Even while dragging my feet telling God, we know how this will go. We know. In fact, I was telling somebody, I wish that I would have came up here and told everything but how I got here. The adoption, placing my son in God and Jesus being there. I wish I would have spoke everything but that. Because then afterwards, when I did, to see everybody leave and change their minds would have been a sight to see, and it would have broke my heart. But it would have spoke so much truth that I'm speaking to right here. I thought we were building something holy. I thought we were in this for him. But then I started to see why we're really here and what we're really doing. It wasn't worship and it wasn't performance. And for anybody out there that says, you're judging, no, I'm discerning. And I'm asking, what do you guys think that you're doing in the silence? And anybody, they say those are the pretty little words. It's not our job. Or those pretty little words that people sit behind when they don't want to address the truth, when they see clearly. I used to lie to myself and tell people that they don't see, or tell God, people don't see, they don't know, but they do. You do, especially the ones that are out there so boldly. You have to see it, especially if you came here. But that's the very essence of letting you. But God never tells us not to address it. He shows us how. He he gives us the Holy Spirit to guide us on how to do these things, and it always reflects his heart and always gives people a way to come back. People may look around here and say, well, God brings people in. There ain't nobody here. You done pushed them all away. I'll be the first one to argue that I didn't have to do. I was pushing. I was pushing for sure. I was pushing for us to reflect our own hearts. I was pushing all the questions I ask, everything about my channel reflects back to your heart and where you're sitting with Jesus and God in your relationship, because I can't tell you what that will look like. I can't tell you what that would say. I can tell you what mine did, and I can tell you, a lot of the things that you're going to go through when you get there and go through it, and when you say yes and trying to hear his voice and sifting through. I can tell you so much, but there is a lot that I cannot tell you, and everything about here makes you question your own heart, not mine. So I tell you, and I will be like I said, I'll be the first one to argue. I didn't have to do much pushing. Y'all ran away quicker than I could see. So I took a step back, not from God, but from all of it. All of it. And then just like that, you left with it, with the lights, with the claps, with the crowd. No life raft, no prayer, just silence. Because we think that's okay. And now I see you cheer for each other again, uplift each other again. The encouragement picked back up, but it skipped me. It ain't here no more. Like obedience had an expiration date, and I passed mine. I failed. I missed it. But I will say, saving face is not giving grace. And I think that's what a lot of people do in the name of Jesus, is save face, not give grace, not true grace, because you would have to ask yourself a lot of the questions that we talk about here in order to do that. You don't think that you think I didn't notice. You tell people we're not supposed to notice this. We're not supposed to speak on those things that I'm speaking on. And I wish I didn't notice, but it's the gift he gave me. I do. I notice how it all flows so freely until it gets to me. And then it stops, goes silent, and it stalls out like Grace had boundaries. We give God boundaries. We give Jesus boundaries. We limit him here. And why? Is the question that you need to ask yourself when you come here and you feel the way that you do. You need to ask why. And when you left, the celebration kept going, just not here. It picked right back up like nothing happened. Like I was never here, like just a blip, a pause. Because it didn't fit your perfect, polished, Instagrammable faith. The one we can look at and wrap our heads around. But I never left the storm. I stayed in the fire you wouldn't touch. I stayed when God said stay. I spoke when he said speak. I cried out when it would have been easier, quite frankly, to just shut up and go about my life and let you. That's the kind of let you and let them and accept it that you guys want me to have. And now I'm tired. Not tired of the call. I'm tired of carrying it alone. It feels like I'm carrying it all alone. And I know that there's a few of you out there that know what I'm talking about, and you're here, and I see you, and I love you for it. I absolutely do. I never came here to start fires. But now I'm to the point I won't apologize if one breaks out. If I'm not apologizing for the one that's being started over here. Because when it burns, it'll be holy again. So let it burn if that's what it takes to make his name holy again. Burn the applause that drowned out conviction. Burn the comfort that replaced repentance. Burn the stages that forgot who the platform was really for. I'm not bitter. I just never wanted this. I didn't want to be up here telling my brothers and sisters that they missed him. It's not my job. I never wanted it. But I tried. I tried to avoid it. I tried to stay quiet, tried to make you see him before it came to this. Remember that. Because it shouldn't be my job. It shouldn't be my job to tell people screaming about Jesus's love that they missed it. That they missed him. But the words will not die because the words aren't mine. So I'll take this gift he gave me and I'll start speaking on what he's shown me. Just like he always has shown me. And it's not ever about being right. And it's not about being wrong. I'm learning that in a world that likes to make everything look so black and white, I'm that gray area. I was born in that gray area. I came from the gray area. So right there in the middle is where I'll speak, where it gets blurry, where it doesn't make sense, where it's speaking but it's not walking, until he tells me not to anymore. And then I guess we'll talk about something else. And if I have to stand outside the camp, I will. If I have to be the one that makes you uncomfortable, I'll do that too. If I have to lose your approval to keep his presence, then strip it all away from me. I don't want it. Take it. You can have it. Because I want to bring God's presence back. I want his presence here, that when we come in and we speak in his name, we sit up straight. Not lean back and pick it apart. So you can have it. If that's what it is, you can have it. But don't you dare say you didn't know. Don't say no one warned you. Don't pretend it wasn't God who gave me the courage to cry when all of you fell silent, to cry out throughout the silence, through it. Because most of you wanted the stage, you wanted the spotlight, you wanted the crowd. And I get it. Oh, I get it. But through it, I wanted the truth more. We should always want the truth more. And now here's the truth. Just like I said, y'all have won. I hope you understand the prize. And I have said all that I want to say. So now I'm going to continue to speak like I don't hear the silence screaming so loudly in my ears. And if you want to come back, come back. Not for me, but to start asking yourself why you feel the way you do and what Jesus would really do. We ask it, what would Jesus do? We take that saying, but we need to ask it. And I pray for you. I do. I pray you come back, not for me. I pray that you guys understand that the way you feel is keeping you from taking that one step closer to get to him. It has nothing to do with me. But you make it about me, leaving here with the feelings that you do and doing nothing with that. So come back, pull up a seat, not for me. You don't even gotta let me know you're here. It's okay. And find Jesus. Figure out what God did, not for me, brothers and sisters. I already know. But for you.